Welcome back to another exciting episode of Emmy versus the movies. Today we're talking about The King of Kong, A Fistful of Quarters. Uh, a great movie and a great video game documentary. One of the original video game documentaries. There was one before it called Chasing Ghosts, which I was thinking about reviewing in the future, but I felt like sitting down and watching specifically this movie right now, so I know that's technically the predecessor, but they don't really interconnect. It's not like a sequel in a sense, but they touch on a lot of the same kind of themes, and that one touches more on classic arcade games rather than just Donkey Kong. This one focuses a lot on Donkey Kong and beating the high score of Donkey Kong and the rivalry and the discourse and all of the what you call it the drama surrounding that. So originally the Donkey Kong world record was held by Billy Mitchell. Originally it was actually a different guy, but he actually made up that he did that record, I guess, or he like lied about it or something. They say that at the beginning of the film. In the whole film, they make out like Billy Mitchell to be like this bad guy, and you know, to some extent, yeah, he probably is. In more recent controversies, he's been shown as maybe kind of like a cheater or whatever. Um, but also, the whole movie kind of builds up this whole point. Even he says it at one point, like, you have to be there doing the video game score live in order for it to be really impressive. And then the whole movie kind of builds up to that, and he never really does anything with that. And I think that's kind of the point, is that he didn't have the guts to go there and be there and do the score in person, whereas our protagonist is, as it was, Steve Weeby at the time, was willing to go above and beyond, and he set the record in person a bunch of times, and or at least once, and I think he submitted a record later on where he got it and whatnot. So, but of course that was after they put the high score officially in the Guinness Book of World Records for the first time in 2007 there. Which, like, yeah, I mean, this movie's a little bit old, and there was a guy after that, like a doctor. I think it was Dr. Chen or something like that, or Dr. Hank or something like that. Hank Chen, maybe. I remember he was on the All Gen Gamers podcast back in the day, as well as was Steve Weeby. So, yeah, I mean, it was interesting, especially back then. This is definitely one of those movies I played a lot on the side while I was playing video games, such as these classic NES games here. These are mostly, obviously, arcade games, but I would put this on the side while I was just playing, like, classic NES games, so, like, when I was really obsessed with that back in the day. And I mean, as far as like arcade games go, I do always, if we go to an arcade, I do play Donkey Kong. I'm not very good at Donkey Kong. I don't usually get very far in it, and especially when I've had a couple of drinks, then I definitely don't do very good at Donkey Kong. I didn't even think we got past the first stage last time when we tried it. We're so pathetic, but like, it's hard. It's actually really hard. Like, I've beaten the NES game, but like, it's just like 4 levels and you practice it a little bit, and you don't have like the joystick, you just have like the D-pad. It's a lot easier because it's like something I'm more used to, but I don't know, like, I like classic arcade games. Like, I don't know, one I like is Burger Time. That's why I kind of put it there. Me and my friend Jameson, we like Burger Time a lot, but I was trying to think about it beforehand, and I'm like, I don't know which classic arcade games I'm really that great at. I mean, it's a little bit before my area of expertise, which is the NES, which had a lot of ports of classic arcade games. It's taking many courses in classic arcade games, but it itself was not necessarily classic arcade games. It was the dawn of adventure games, side scrollers and long games that went beyond a couple of screens. It really pioneered that, especially like Super Mario Brothers was that. I mean, even that is like a game that I like to go into the arcade and play. And okay, now maybe you guys can clear this up. I know it's a little off topic, but I was playing Super Mario Brothers. I think it was the Versus machine. I don't know. It was some kind of Super Mario Brothers arcade game that is the original Super Mario Brothers, and I think it's Versus because that's the one I know. And I went to do the warp in World 4 2, and it only gave me option for World 6. Where is the actual warp to get to World 8? I need to know this because I want to beat the game in the arcade. I thought I was going to do it because I'm like, oh, I could just go to World 8. But it's like, no, you can only go to World 6. Is that the farthest you can get is World 6 and then you have to play through the rest of the game? Because that'd be pretty insane if it was. Although I do have like a bazillion tokens I always forget to bring into Analog every time we go there. So maybe I'll just bring those all in one time and actually beat it, and it'll be cool, and it'll be an event. But I'm just saying, it's like kind of bullshit that you would have to even like do that. Like, you should be able to warp there, but you can't warp there. The other warp is the exact same. It's just weird. I don't understand that. But anyway, back to Donkey Kong. Obviously, Donkey Kong was a very influential game. It was kind of Nintendo's first big hit, and then it kind of launched that whole industry, and that's why it's an important game, and that's why this record is kind of important too. This is really the story of that record and how that record got beat, and then was beat again by a tape that Billy Mitchell sent in, but there was like some distortion on like when it turns over to a million, and it's like, you know, unverifiable, but they verified it anyway, so it's kind of a shitty thing to do, and the movie kind of plays on that a little bit. But it's very high suspense in terms of, like, is he gonna beat the score? Is he gonna get there? Like, what is Billy Mitchell ever gonna play head-to-head with him, you know? The most we get out of that is, like, at the end, Billy Mitchell just, like, kind of walks past him, and it's just like, well, we don't want to spend any time with that guy, and it's like, okay, like, you know, it would have been nice to see him, like, compete head-to-head, but maybe Billy Mitchell really has lost his touch or something. Maybe that was kind of why he didn't want to do it, because he didn't think he could beat Steve Wiebe in person or whatever. So, I don't know. I think, like, I mean, obviously this is a documentary. It's not like a fiction film, but, like, I think as a protagonist, as the film portrays him, Steve Wiebe is a very likable protagonist, you know? We want him to win against Billy Mitchell. They set up Billy Mitchell to be this, like, villain character, but, you know, he's not necessarily that. They portray him that way, but obviously, magic of editing and whatnot, but, I'm sure he's an okay guy. I mean, maybe not. I don't know. We've heard a lot of bad things about him recently again, but who knows what's true and what's not and stuff. But I remember specifically at the time Stevie Wiebe saying that, I think on the podcast or something, like how they made out Billy to be this villain. Or I think it was actually Walter Day, who I also met Walter Day at a Portland Retro Gaming Expo in like 2018 or whatever, and I shook his hand and I'm like, hey, you know, I'm from Iowa too. You're just like a few hours like somewhere else from me. Yeah, like a few hours some direction for me, and we kind of talked about that briefly, and so yeah, I thought that was cool. He's a nice guy, you know. He's just a nice guy, and I like that about him. That other documentary is kind of like his documentary too. Like he kind of does a lot in that one as well. But he's also in this one a lot, you know. He's kind of this like figurehead of these high scores and whatnot. And at the time, he was kind of the one being like officially recognized as like the top guy for these scores or whatever, but he doesn't really want to do that. He's got other ambitions, other dreams to kind of go about and take on, you know, like his music stuff and whatever. And I think he eventually got around to doing that stuff, but I think he still participates in the video game stuff every now and again. I mean, of course he does. He was a world record holder himself. I think that was in the Chasing Ghosts movie. Yeah, so it's a really enjoyable film, and especially when you were there at the time, it was a pretty epic movie because it was more recent. at the time, you know, it was a more recent thing. I'm sure a lot of people have broke the score now. I would like to see where that's gotten these days. Because I think Steve got the score back at some point. I don't know if Billy Mitchell ever got the score back, but he might have. I don't know. So, hard to say. Anyway, I think, like I said, I think it's just an enjoyable movie overall. It's fun to watch. It's fun to anticipate, you know, watch him grow as a Donkey Kong player, you know, really get the vibe of these are the top players being the world's best players. It's like watching those speedrunner people, like the summoning salt videos, you know, it's like that for like 2006 about Donkey Kong getting the high score, you know, not about a speed run, but like the history of a Donkey Kong high score. And I think that's just really interesting and unique and special, and it's just a good movie overall. And it was one of the classic original video game documentaries that we could hold up high and be like, ooh, look, good movies about video games. And there's plenty more of those to go over, so I probably will go over some of those. A couple of them, like I said, like Chasing Ghosts, and like I know there's this one, Second Skin. It's about like MMOs that was like from 2008, so it was like, you know, probably some MMOs now. It looks a little dated, but it's like, these are the ones I know of. There's probably other good video game documentaries out there I could probably look into, but, you know, I need content, so, yeah, we'll probably look into some of those, but yeah. King of Kong is a pretty great one. Very high energy, very watchable, and it's only like an hour and a half long, you know, which is like perfect length. I like documentaries. I like watching that. I like putting those on the side while I like play a video game or something. Like I was grinding fishing levels in RuneScape while I was watching this, you know, and that's so mindless. I don't even have to pay attention to that. So I was really watching the entire movie, but it was fun, you know. It was like, it was good stuff. So yeah. I mean, if you somehow haven't seen King of Kong, it's definitely a highly recommended like video game movie or video game documentary. Especially if you like old school games, this is like right up your alley. So definitely go and watch it. So, um, yeah, but I mean, there's not much to say about it. It's just a generally good movie. So, um, yeah, until next time, keep it classic. Stick around for more reviews, movies, and underrated games, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Emily, out.